some quick things. Thanks for stopping by, and if you haven't already and you enjoy the content that you're seeing, like, share, subscribe. When I get to 100 subscribers, I'm going to choose one of those lucky subscribers, and complete brand new, my expense, I will send you one of my favorite kitchen gadgets that I absolutely cannot live without. So it was supposed to be a very dreary day today, like copious amounts of rain, to the point where it was just going to be like gross and like flood warnings, and isn't that a lovely May 2-4 weekend? So originally I had planned to have some really nice pork ribs on the barbecue, but in hearing about this pending doom of rain, I opted to go with, because it's Sunday, and Sunday is generally a pasta day, or at least that's how I grew up, I was going to do what we call, or at least my family calls, a lazy lasagna. What is a lazy lasagna? Well, first of all, lasagna, it's really, the whole purpose of it being called a lazy lasagna is because it's supposed to be a cheat, right? You're not layering your noodles and stacking them and doing all that. It's just more of a kind of throw together type lasagna. But in terms of the prep and the ingredients, it's not very lazy, because nothing to, really changes except the noodles that you use. So I am doing a bigger lazy lasagna than I would normally do, because I am running low on my small 454 gram boxes. So we're going to be using a 700 gram bag of rigatoni, the little baby rigatoni. Lazy lasagna, at least in my house, was always rigatoni. It's like my dad's favorite kind of pasta. He hates spaghetti or spaghettini, anything that you really twirl up with a fork, that my mom and I absolutely adored. Hates it. So when his specialty, I think maybe this might be one of his creations, or at least in our household, was lazy lasagna. That was his specialty, and rigatoni was his jam, so I keep it much the same. Here's where I differ. I am a big fan of reduce, reuse, recycle, and anything that we can save, we save. Sauce, everything can be reused, multi-purposed. And in one of my other videos, I think it was Meat and Veggie Pasta Delight, I'll link it in the description below. Check it out, so freaking good. But one of my points is that you can make an obscene amount of something and portion control it and save it for a rainy day, so that, yeah, okay, you're spending $12 making your sauce, but how many meals can you get out of that $12, especially if you're a single person, right? Because budget is always important. We want to eat healthy, we want to be healthy, we want to feel healthy, but at the same time we also have to watch our budget. So I'm going to be utilizing some of my sauce from that recipe that I threw in the freezer, and it is literally filled with some meat. I'm going to enhance it with more meat today, some buff, because that's what's already in that, and a whole lot of veg. Like, there was a ton of veg in there: spinach, mushroom, peppers, oh, the carrots, the list goes on and on and on, and it's good for you. It bulks up your meal. It's vegetables, really, and it stretched out the budget. So I'm going to be using 2 small frozen containers of that, plus 1 jar of my San Marzano tomatoes. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing that I did is, in a pot where my sauce is going to build and ultimately going to be, I chopped up 1 shallot. If you don't have a shallot, don't worry. You can use half an onion, you can use a whole onion. This is the amount that I recommend. I'm not an onion fan. And I have finely minced 2 cloves of garlic. I am not going to add any additional oil to it, because we are going to also add our ground beef, which, although it is lean ground beef, does have enough of its own fat, so I'm not going to add any more. Alright, well, it's a somewhat better setup. We'll get it on the food momentarily, okay? So I'm just going to add in my buff. Now my buff is not completely thawed, okay? She's still partially frozen, but it's not a big deal, oh Lord, because we're going to cook it. And beef is one of those very forgiving proteins, at least ground beef. Ground beef is a very forgiving protein in that you can throw it in hot and literally it can be partially frozen, it can be frozen. You're just going to have to maybe chip away at it. Okay? So I turned it on to medium. As the fat renders from the lean ground beef, that fat is going to help caramelize the onion and the shallot and the garlic. So I'm going to let that go, and I'm going to see if I can fix this so you can see in here. Tripod is coming, guys. Alright, so as you can see, my buff is still frozen a little bit, but that's okay. Alright, like, don't worry about it. If you're in a rush for time, and I mean, you can even do this the night before and then throw the pot once it's cooled down into the fridge, so that when you're coming home from work, this is like easy peasy. But this is what I'm just doing now. If you don't already have some sort of sauce in the freezer that you're going to be utilizing, and you're making this complete from scratch, I'll link the video for my veggie meat pasta delight in the comments, so you can check that video out. If you just want to do a strict meat sauce, this is what you're going to do. Now for a lazy lasagna, I would add 2 jars of sauce, okay? 2 jars of sauce instead of the 1. So the 2 small containers of sauce that I have frozen are equivalent to 1 puree jar. And you're just going to adjust your salt, pepper, and sugar to your taste, depending on how sweet. Because you may like this sauce a little sweeter, you may like it a little bit more acidic. I personally can't handle it. I've always grown up with sauce, you know, having sugar in it to help with the acidity as well as bay leaves. If you like yours spicy and you want a whole lot of chili pepper in there, you know, feel free. I do have little people eating this, and they will not eat it if I've got chili peppers in there, or at least they'll try it and then spit it back out at me. So this is what I mean about the fat. So my onions, or my shallots rather, and my garlic are literally frying up very nicely, because although this is extra lean ground beef from Costco, look at the fat, right? Like, look at all that. So there is no need to add any more olive oil in here, not at all. Now if you're using a ground veggie substitute, what I would do is I would saute my onions and garlic in 1.5 tablespoons of olive oil, and then I would throw in my veggie ground substitute very quickly at the end, just to get a little fry on it, and then I would throw in my sauce. Okay, so there's ways that you can get around that if you're doing a strictly vegetarian and or vegan dish. Okay, so once my meat is completely cooked and we're ready to throw in the sauce, we're going to come back. Okay, so now that my beef is cooked here, I thought this was something. It's not. It's okay. It's just regular sauce, so we're going to throw the regular sauce in. Wasn't a whole lot, so we may add 2 jars after all. But here we have some of the frozen meat veggie delight. So I'm throwing it in now because I want it to fully melt. Okay? I'm going to take a look in my freezer to see if I can find the other one. If not, we're going to go with 2 jars of sauce. Alright, I found the second container, threw it in the microwave to get it warmed enough and thawed enough so I can put it in. So, it's lovely. This, I mean, it's fantastic. It's got, it has carrots and peppers and mushrooms and spinach. It literally is divine, and you can get a ton of meals out of the one recipe. So to it, I'm going to add 1 jar of my San Marzano tomato paste. Alright, tomato puree, not paste. And there's quite a bit of sauce in there, so I'm going to fill it 3/4 of the way. I'm going to put the lid on, shake it, and pour the rest of the contents in here. Okay, so I've added in about 2 tablespoons of sugar, a tablespoon of oregano. I'm going to add a teaspoon of black pepper, and I added about a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. It already has enough from the seasoning of the other sauce, so I'm just going to give it a stir. And again, check the description below for the other video. It was fantastical. Oh my. It was delicious. It absolutely was. So, although this is pretty much mostly already cooked sauce before, there is new sauce in it. So I am going to let it cook on low once it starts to bubble for a good 45 minutes. And it's going to thicken up nicely for our lasagna. And likely we will have some leftover sauce from here too, but I'll tell you what to do with that when we get there. Alright guys, our sauce is looking nice. It's gotten some thickness to it. Just about the consistency I want for lasagna, right? Like I don't want it super thick like glue, but I don't want it loose either. We're just going to talk about the sauce. So we're going to turn it down. We're going to preheat our oven to 400 degrees, and we're going to get our water going here. When our water starts to boil, we're going to add salt because our pasta water should taste of the ocean. The reason you don't add salt now and you add salt when your water is boiling is because if you add it now, because of the chemical properties of the salt, it will actually stain your pots and pans, and you won't be able to really get it off. So that's why you always add salt when the water is already rapidly boiling, right? Because if not, the sulfuric, all that stuff sits at the bottom of your water, and that's when a buildup will happen and stains. And I mean, if you don't care about your pots, but just food for thought. Okay, so when it comes to a rapid boil, that's when we're going to put in our pasta. We want it incredibly al dente, so we're going to cook it 70% of the way. So that will mean it's still hard, but we can still kind of bend it like that a little bit. So I'll show you what that looks like. When that happens, we're going to pull everything and we're going to start to assemble our lazy lasagna. In the meantime, while my water comes up to a boil, oh, I made a big mess. It went on my wall, it went on my stove, and it flew backwards and hit me in the arm. I just had a bath. It was a big mess. Moving on. How many times do you see flowers? Let me know in the comment section. Alright. Okay, I'm going to get my cheese grated. I'm going to go with about 3 cups of cheese because this is a big, I'm using 700 gram bag of pasta. If I was using 454, I'd go with about 2 cups of cheese, but because it's literally just about double, I'm not doubling the cheese. I can stretch it out a little bit. We're also going to go with about a 1/2 cup of Parmigiano Reggiano. If you don't have that and you have Romano cool beans, if you want to omit it completely, blessed. Your choice. I'm going to go ahead and grate my cheese. Side note, my cheese is going to be like 70-30. So like 70 mozzarella, 30% marble. I like using marble cheese. I know, it's totally not traditional. I get it. But I'm Italian and mad respect for my culture. But when I use vegetables in my sauce, I like to have that variance in cheese flavor and texture. I really like Saputo because of the stringiness, but it's a you preference thing, so whatever you got, do it up. I'm going to go ahead and grate my cheese. Alright, our sauce is going nicely and our water is boiling rapidly. So in our pasta goes. Okay, so we're going to cook it. My guess is once it starts coming to a boil for about 5-7 minutes tops, but I'm going to put a lid on to kind of expedite that. Okay guys, my noodles are done. Okay, so let's see if we can do this without burning myself. So they're still hard, but I can squish them down. Still hard, still raw. If I bit into this, it would be unpleasant because it's raw, but it's got flexibility in that I can bend it. So I'm going to go ahead and drain it. I'm going to pour freezing cold water over top of it and just kind of move it around. I know I'm going to lose some of the starch. That's okay with me, because I want to stop the cooking process as much as I can. Alright, so in my casserole dish here, I was going to do it in my Curtis stone pan, much like I do a lot of my recipes, but if you guys don't have it, you know, I'm going to try and do as much out of it as I possibly can. So you are always going to put in water first into the bottom of your baked dish, okay? And then to this water, we're going to add about 2 ladles. I made a big mess. 2 ladles. It's out to the bay leaves. Take those out of sauce, and then we're just going to mix it all in. And this is so that the noodles don't stick, okay? So once we've got that, so we've got the water, and we've got the sauce all mixed in, and we're just going to we're going to ladle in our noodles here, okay? So it's about half the noodles that you cooked for the first level, okay? Beautiful. Just kind of mix them around here. Now, to this, we're going to cover with sauce. Be generous about it, right? Because we don't want them to get burnt and crusty. And this sauce, I hope you're tasting. I sure tasted. It was mighty fine. Definitely like a nice vegetable and meat sauce, and it really amps up your budget. And honestly, this is how I got my kids to look forward to eating vegetables. Like last night, it was my anniversary yesterday. Happy anniversary, husbandito. And we had one of our favorite oh my gosh, I dropped you all again. Okay, so once you have a nice layer of sauce coating everything, you're going to sprinkle with some Parmesan cheese or Romano if you have it. If you don't and you want to admit it, cool beans, go ahead. It just adds a really nice another dimension of flavor and a little bit of salty bite to it. Not a whole lot. And then I've already mixed my grated cheese. So we're going to go ahead and do a layer of cheese. And then once you've got your layer of cheese, it's repeat, repeat, repeat. So we're only doing 2 layers for this because the rigatoni is quite thick. Okay. And yeah, so we've got that in. Now we're going to pour in the rest of our rigatoni, and we're going to move it around so she's all nice and even. So this is a really hearty dish. This is literally, you can feed 8 people with this dish. And we did utilize some leftovers, at least I used some leftovers in terms of the sauce, right? And I mean, it's always a crowd pleaser. Like, I say that a lot with my meals, but like legit, when I put this in front of people, so happy. And with this, I'm just serving a side garden salad. And I will make my dressing tonight. Instead of allowing people to kind of put whatever dressing they want on it, I'm craving some homemade dressing. So I will do that for you guys when we're just about ready to serve. So we're going to be very generous again now with the sauce. We want to make sure every square inch of this is coated. I made a mess. Oh my god, It's so good. Okay, I'm gonna get this done and we'll show you right before we go into the oven. Alright, so this is the part where I would tell you to put, look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Isn't she pretty? I don't know why I keep referring to food as a she, but I do. This is the point where I would tell you to put some Q-tips in and to remember how many Q-tips you put in. Or Q-tips. Toothpicks. Do not put Q-tips. It's been a long day, y'all. I'd be telling you to put in toothpicks, and the toothpicks are going to help so that the aluminum foil that I'm going to be loosely putting on doesn't stick to the cheese. So you know what? It's just going to be hella loose. It's going to go in a preheated 400 degree oven for 45 minutes. After 45 minutes, I'm going to take the lid off and let it go for another 5 to 10 minutes. At which point I'm going to pull it out. So it's just going to be when the top is brown. And then I'm going to let it sit for 5 minutes to get all nice and settled. We have a tiny little bit of sauce left over. I'm going to use that to make my little one's dinner because he's not a fan of lasagna but loves pasta. Otherwise, freeze it. So we'll be back in 45 minutes. And this is why it's important to remember toothpicks when you're at the grocery store. That's okay. We're going to make it look pretty. The parts that peeled off. It's looking great. It smells fantastic. Ah, burning my skin. Wow. I hate clipping together and edits, so I'm going to try really hard not to cuss. Oh man. Alright, so she's going to go back in for another 5 to 7 minutes, and then we're going to let her rest for 5 minutes. So the top is just going to get browned right now. Okay. It's a little hectic and chaotic up in this house right now, but the pasta is out. I will show you it in a minute. We're going to do our salad. So it's a lovely garden salad. It's nice and full. It's got peppers, tomatoes, cucumbers, onions, lettuce. So we're going to do about 2 tablespoons of olive oil. We're going to do like a teaspoon of vinegar, okay? Just plain old white vinegar. We're going to do salt and pepper to taste, okay? Because everyone's palate is different. Some of you guys may like salt and pepper, or may like more pepper than more salt. Dietary restrictions. So I always say salt and peppers to your taste, okay? Clearly I added in a ton of pepper. Dried oregano. Probably about a good teaspoon of dried oregano. Now I'm going to be using feta cheese that I'm going to crumble. So I'm utilizing my older container first. So I'd say a good 2 tablespoons of feta cheese that I'm literally just crumbling, okay? I know, tripod is on its way, my friends. And before you just dump your feta cheese container in the sink, put your hand over it because I can guarantee you're going to get some real big chunks in there of feta cheese that you would have otherwise just thrown away. Okay, there's my feta. I mean, you can definitely buy a very similar dressing. I think Kraft has them for about $2, but homemade is always best. So we're going to mix until everything is all incorporated. It's normally we eat dinner at like 5 o'clock and it's 22. So there's a few little people up in my house right now who are not happy with me. But that's what happens when you party naked. I don't know, you know, like sometimes you get distracted, and I didn't start on time, and anyways, such is life. So we're gonna try the salad, okay, because we taste everything. So try it to make sure it's to your desired liking. Oh my god. That salad makes me happy. Because you know, some people say you don't make friends with salad. You don't want to make friends with those people. I want to make friends with salad. Okay. Let's look at the lasagna. And I don't really have time because people are screaming to cut it up and plate it for you. Try to. But we're gonna taste it anyways. We're gonna look at it. Doesn't she look pretty? Yeah, I'm gonna burn my face right off. Fantastically cooked. Okay, before we go, let's break it down. That's the most important thing, right? The noodles, I don't even know what the cost they were given to me by my parents, but I'm gonna say they were about $1.79, so let's round it up to $2. The amount of cheese I used, including the Parmesan, was probably $4, so we're at $6. The sauce, the one jar is $1, so that's $7. Had I not had the leftover sauce, I would have added another jar. That would have been $8. The amount of ground beef would have been $3. We're at $11. And the vegetables, another $2. So $13. Let's round it up to $14. Feeding 6 comfortably. With the salad, we're at $16. So a little bit of a splurge, but because I had the leftover sauce, for me, I'm feeding 6 for about $14. That's not bad, considering buying a frozen lasagna like this, even from an Italian bakery, this size, you're looking at about $60 to $75, depending on where you go. Lovely, healthy, delicious. If you enjoy the content, like, share, subscribe, and as always, enjoy.